All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of AVX Live. I am your host today, Ryan Finch, Creative Technology Director here at Corporate AV. And as you can probably tell, today is a very, very special day. Very special week, I should say. Joe is actually off speaking at a global event on virtual and hybrid event technology. So congrats to him. Go check out our social feeds to register if you haven't done so already. It is kicking off, I want to say, 3 o'clock? 3 o'clock Eastern?
3 o'clock,
So
yes.
there's still time. And of course, that means that I am in the driver's seat today. Very exciting. And even more exciting, we have a new co-host, Alexa Lilos, account manager
Hello.
at Corporate AV. Welcome.
Thank you.
How does it feel? This is your first time. You've been on the show twice now, right? But this is the first time in a co-host role. So what's it like?
It feels great. I mean, it feels like I'm moving up in the world. I'm not quite yet at magazine cover, but I'm getting there. I feel it.
One way or another, it gets plugged, whether it's Joe or someone else. That's good to know. Wonderful. Well, being that you are here, you have very big shoes to fill because I've heard that our former co-host is just a really incredible co-host. So hopefully, hopefully you can help us out in today's episode of Kids Corner. Kids Corner, hit
it. Hey.
Joe is going to hate that when he sees it. I love it. So we have a true industry veteran, a top dog of the technical pool, an essential ace, if you will, to speak with today. But before we get to that, Alexa, you have a very important job right now.
Yes, I do.
And I need you to tell everyone how they can find us.
I got this. So if you want to find us on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, you can comment, like, share, smash the subscribe button.
Woo!
Make sure you interact with us. If you have any questions, you can drop them. We'll be sure to try and answer them, giving us any new ideas for the coming weeks and what you'd like to see.
All right. And what days and what times?
Wednesdays at 1 p.m.
Okay.
Check it out.
2 out of 3. We'll take it. Not so bad. Not so shabby for your first time around. This is good.
Woo!
All right. So today, like I said, we have a very special guest, a longtime friend and colleague of Corporate AV. This guest is no spring chicken here, meaning he has been around the block 40 years in the AV industry. It's pretty incredible. He has personally taught me a hell of a lot. We're going to get more to that in just a second. He spent his early years working at the legendary Concord Resort Hotel in New York's Catskills Mountain, where he was the director of AV, and of course was also in the stage crew during that time, working with many notable artists of the time. In the mid-90s, he became the director of AV services at the iconic Waldorf Astoria Hotel in midtown Manhattan, which of course, far cry from the Catskill setting from the previous decade. And then, of course, in 1997, he struck out on his own, starting Rob Friedland Production Services, of which he remains the proprietor to this day, and is actually also where many of the collaborations with our team took place. So obviously, a long run there, and happy to have Rob as a partner on all these years. Rob currently resides in Charlotte, North Carolina area with his wonderful, wonderful wife, Judy. And of course, he does continue to travel for select clients who demand the highest levels of production for their meetings and events. Of course, we would be remiss not to also mention that Rob is a pretty darn good musician. He slaps the bass guitar. He has a pretty fine set of pipes on him as well. And I should know because he and I have performed together on many occasions. But we will get to more of that in just a little bit. So for now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Rob Friedland.
Hey guys, good to see you. Good to see you today.
Likewise, welcome, Rob. How are we doing down there in the southern coast?
Things are doing pretty well. The temperatures are hovering at around 50 degrees. The snows of last week have all but totally melted away, and I feel the warmth. I feel the love. I mean, it's Ryan's first time as host, Alexa's first time as co-host. I'm here in the rumble seat for the first time.
Lots of firsts. Oh, this is great. This is great. Well, we're glad to have you. Rob, I got to ask, before we get into the stuff, the nitty-gritty, how's the old band doing, man? How they doing? How they doing without you? I don't know. So for anybody who doesn't know, Rob was in a band, The Other Band, for what, like 30 years or something like that?
Yeah, over 30 years. It's true. There they are.
Band. How they doing without you?
Well, first and foremost, I remain in communication with the guys, and I miss them, no doubt. They're not only
Absolutely.
bandmates, moreover, they're friends. We had some great stories, great experiences that would be a whole other show to discuss. But they're doing well. They're still out there playing. I hear about their gigs. I'm on their social feeds, and it's good to see that they're still out there doing it. The boys are doing all right. I miss them, and we're talking about already maybe this summer on a visit, a little bit of a reunion show. We'll see. Hopefully, we can make that happen.
Well, you're going to have to let me know when that is, because
Absolutely.
one way or another, I am going to need to be there.
Absolutely.
For sure. I mean, they've known you since back when you looked something like this, right?
That's true. That's true. I see someone's been scouring the Facebook pages.
Oh,
yeah, that
yes,
shot
I
right
have.
there was 1991 at Riverfest in Poughkeepsie, New York. And I still have that bass right there. That's the Fender Precision bass that I use all the time.
All right.
Love that
that's
picture.
great. That's
We were
great.
opening up for Zebra and the band at that show. That was
Zebra and the band. Well, as many who know me know, any music made before the year 1991 basically doesn't exist to me, because I am uncultured. So I'll have to Google that later on. But yes, and indeed, Marissa, the 90s, I do indeed love the 90s. Also, Rob, while we have a moment here, one Joe Gilderson thinks it'd be great to catch up. Wishes he was on the show.
Same here, Joe.
I think the energy's great today, Joe. You're not needed right now.
It's fantastic.
So
But
pipe
these
down
two-
over here.
These two are kicking it for sure.
Yeah. He also had a comment about me. Thank you. It's incredible. All right. Enough fooling around, Rob. So, first question I have for you, right?
Yeah.
I know that you have a bit of a slogan, and I'm going to throw it up on a banner right here. Elevate your event. Okay. So tell us how did this come to be, and furthermore, how did you find your way into events, into AV? What brought you in?
Elevate your event. I believe I came up with that maybe 12 or 15 years ago. In the process of doing things like printing up letterhead, new business cards. These are things we used back in the day. I realized I needed some kind of a tagline, and I always felt that my involvement with people's events, I would give them an opportunity to lift it one step higher, to maybe take it to the next level, even if that was a small jump. And it's something that I've always prided myself on. So I tried to think of the right word, how can I convey, I want to lift you up a little bit higher without starting to sing like Sly and the Family Stone. So I came up with Elevate Your Event, and it's just sort of stuck. It's on all my emails and cards, and I guess I'll keep it until someone buys the rights.
Okay, fair. And what brought you to AV originally?
Right out of college, it's all I've done forever. I tell people that when people say, "So how'd you get into this business?" And I say, "It's all I've ever done." I went from stocking shelves in my dad's grocery store to going to college and coming out and going right into AV at the aforementioned Concord Hotel, where a classmate of mine was in the convention services department. I ran into him in the local pizzeria, and he told me about an opening in the AV department. I started in 1982 or 83. And listen, what drew me into it was the money. I want to be very clear. I started at a wage of $3.35 per hour.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Big money. That was minimum wage at that time in New York State, and that was my starting wage in AV. And that's how I started, and I never stopped. I was there for 6-7 years at the Concord Hotel, and the rest was history, as they say.
Wow.
That's really cool. Did you feel like you were able to pick up the AV world? Like, I know you said you kind of just fell into it. That's just, you went for the money, but did you feel like you found your rhythm pretty easily when you started?
Well, you know what? That's a good point, because I wouldn't say that I found it easily. I studied communications in college. And as many of us know, if you study one thing in college and you try to do it in practice in real life, it's two very different things. Even if there is some merging of the fields and the disciplines that you learn. So I was learning more about the advertising industry in college and communications, and that's where my career was slanted. By the way, I'm sure as heck glad I didn't end up in that, because those people are crazy. But I came out and I was, I was looking for a job. And like I said, I ran into the gentleman and he told me about, I mentioned the word communications. He said, "Oh, would you be interested in maybe AV?" And I said, "I suppose." I never did it in high school. There's guys who have been in the AV department in high school and kind of got used to doing stuff in that regard. I never did that. So when I went to the Concord, I realized that there were two planes that they were working in. One was they had a very large convention and conference footprint. They had a lot of conference rooms, large and small. There was an exposition floor where we would do displays. And then, of course, they had the entertainment component. It was a very big entertainment hotel. They had a 3,000 seat auditorium, which at the time was a very large auditorium in a hotel. So I learned very quickly what it was like to work the equipment of the time. Again, given the time frame, we're talking SM58s plugged into Shure mixers and slide projectors on carts and VCRs and stuff like that. So it was not like a big high tech thing, but that's what it was. So I to answer your question, Alexa, yeah, I think I picked that part up pretty quickly, and honestly, because there wasn't a lot of technology to really pick up at that time. It was more about delivering what you had to deliver, getting the stuff set up on time, getting it plugged in and working, and making sure the client was happy. Oddly enough, sounds a lot like what we still do today, but that's that's how that went.
Very cool.
A service-oriented approach from the very beginning, you say?
Yes.
Well, it apparently has rubbed off on some others in the industry. I don't know if you saw this popped up. Our friend George Buzzio apparently misses you, and of course, as I said earlier, Mr. Jim Marlowe has checked in.
It is Mr. Westchester. There he is.
That's right. Well, look, you're absolutely right. The service-oriented service-oriented aspects of this business is certainly, still the focus, at least, from the perspectives that you and I bring. Oh wait, hold on. I'd be remiss not to, because you're getting some fanfare here, Mr. Corral, and of course the Silver Shark. The Silver Shark. Alexa, you never got a chance to meet the Silver Shark.
No,
I sit
we
in his
didn't.
desk now, and we miss him very much.
Eddie, I miss him too.
All right, so moving on from here. I know that obviously, you've been around the country, not only, with our team, I'm sure, which, of course, we have had a lot of fun.
Look at that picture.
There we go. But I think that was Chicago, if I'm not mistaken.
Do you remember where that was? Here's your trivia question for the day.
So it was a brewery. I know that because... Obviously. Oh, you didn't. Hold on. I got to solo.
Now, for those of you
for
watching at home, I had no idea that Ryan was going to pull up that picture. As some of you may know, I have a very copious collection of beer glasses from breweries around the world that I visit. And I purchased one at that picture's from. This was from Baderbrow Brewery in Chicago.
There it is.
Baderbrow
Oh,
Brewery.
man. Okay, well, I got the city right. Right.
you
And I
were
do remember
close.
that place. That was a lot of fun. They had the big picnic-style benches inside. Oh, I digress. All right, so we've been around the country, right? Obviously, not just with our team, but others. Tell me about some of your highlights. When you reflect back on some projects, what comes to memory? What made it memorable?
Wow. It's in the many years being in this industry, and anyone who's done it for a couple of years, for a couple of decades, whatever, you're always going to say, "Oh, there's so many." So you'll excuse me when I say, "Oh, there's so many," but without a doubt, and it's true. I miss traveling with a lot of the friends and colleagues who I've gotten used to working with over the year. The shows that we've done, like you just mentioned, with Corporate AV, as well as a lot of the other AV partners who I've been with. I miss a lot of those. The stuff that I remember most are usually the programs that were the most difficult. The ones that really required 110% of your energy, of your skills, of your organization, because that ultimately provided the most reward. Listen, at times it's great. You go to a show, you go, thankfully this is an easy show. I can kind of cruise through this. All right, we've all been through those, and that's great. We all need those. But there's something about using every last bit of energy that you got, being beat up at the end of the day and you just want to go back to the hotel room and, sleep, but instead you go for a burger and beer because that can be really those are the kind of shows that I remember, the ones that where I'm calling a show and the cues don't stop. It's a very cue intensive thing and hitting them all. And by the way, that never happens unless you have a stellar crew behind you, sitting behind you, pushing all the buttons, working all the dials. Much like you guys have stellar crew there at Corporate AV. Fortunately, there's stellar crews out there. Some of them are even listening in right now. And, when you're with those people with that level of professionalism, it makes it a lot more memorable because you're going to walk away with a successful product.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. That actually made me think when you're saying it's the most challenging, it also kind of gives you the most growth within like learning something to take with you to the next show. So I totally hear what you're saying when the most challenging ones stick out the most because you learn the most by doing that as well.
That's a very good point because especially if you challenge yourself and sometimes you could be like, oh, I really haven't done exactly this. And then you say, but you know what? I'm going to do it. And if you're successful in that, right there, you've accomplished some growth and you say, oh, now I know next time I can go do this. Yep. That makes a big difference. And invariably, there's always room for that in this industry, as we know, where you could get into a position where you're a little bit out of your comfort zone, but that doesn't mean that you're out of your confidence zone. And that's a very important delineation.
That's for a banner right there.
That's got to go on. Look, Alexa, you got this down already as the co-host. Hold on. More. You're going to have to say it again. More confident.
You can step out of you can be out of your comfort zone, but that doesn't mean that you have to be out of your confidence zone.
That's wonderful. Out of comfort zone does not mean out of. It kind of ruins the effect when I have to like manually say it and type it. There we go. Paraphrased. Still counts. Still on a banner.
Good. Yes.
There we go.
Like
that was a nice little tidbit there, Mr. Friedland. That was a good one. And Alexa, thank you. Wise beyond her years, Rob. Right?
Yes.
Knowing that pain sometimes equals growth.
That's for sure.
And in this business, pain. It's there. It comes.
Well, there's pain. I feel your pain.
I feel your pain. Great crew, Mr. Aniel.
Gabe.
Miss him. Gabe, part of those great crews. Absolutely. Great crews, great events. I think he was in that photo, actually.
He was.
He definitely was in that photo.
Yeah.
Okay, wait, hold on. I have a comment from Mr. Malone here. What happens when you're on the road and you don't have a stellar crew? Obviously, he would never have known that with Corporate AV. However... Well, I'm sure it's happened.
That's actually a very good question. And the truth is, coming from Peter Malone, who himself has been around the block a few times,
amen.
I'm sure that maybe he's been in that position in other instances. But it's a very good question. I think it's important, to address it seriously. I think it's important to recognize if you have a weakness on your crew. I mean, look, we go out, we all want to do the best job possible. We want nothing more than to have success and for our clients to be happy. Sometimes you kind of know when you're setting up and you're in rehearsal that unfortunately there's going to be a weak link. Maybe one department is not really up to snuff. It's important to recognize that. And I like to find a way where I can support that person, where I can, maybe he needs a little extra discussion about what his role is. Maybe he needs another person brought in to assist him, if that's possible. Possibly you have to stay during the lunch break and sit him down and say, so I think we need to try to reset the way that we're looking at this, because I could see that you're getting a little frustrated and I don't want you to feel that way. Mm-hmm. It's important to, in that situation, instead of being threatening or imposing about, you better get your stuff together, because make it a little bit about them. Make it just a little bit about them. I want to help you do a little bit better. I know that you want to do a little bit better today. And I think you can see that it's not quite going the way that all of us want. So let's see if we can have a little discussion here and find a way to make this better for you. You never know. They may have a very good point. They could say, well, you know what? I never really knew that I was going to need this many wireless microphones. So as a result, I didn't communicate to the warehouse. But you could have a reason that's maybe beyond what you're thinking. So if you have somebody that's not stellar, try to understand that some of that may be out of their control. And you can be in a position to fix that before it gets more out the control and affects the entire show. Now, listen, I can count on one hand the amount of times where that's not fixable, and that's where you fire somebody on a show, and it happens in this amount of year. No one wants to do that, right. But in the end, if it's someone who is detrimental and cannot be reversed, then all right, so maybe you have to do that. But again, that's just a last case scenario.
A last resort. Well, You know what, Rob, a lot of well-made points there. And one of the themes that we discuss on the show a lot is leadership, especially on-site leadership. And we've learned from the best having you on site. So your points about recognizing any weaknesses that you may see and addressing it in a positive way, I think are really, really well-made points. And, I don't know that I've seen any weak crews in order to see that in action, but in any case, I'm sure that you did handle it perfectly well. I did actually see another comment from the Peanut Gallery. Since Rob has moved down south, does he only own Hawaiian shirts?
Well, let's see. Okay. I guess, listen, you don't have to travel to Hawaii to come up with shirts like this. You can go to TJ Maxx just like me for $8.99 and come up with threads like this.
Amen. Amen. Well, hey, look, better bang for your buck, I guess.
That's right.
Also, another comment, Alexa is such a better co-host, and that one hurts a little bit. So
I think that qualifies as heckling.
That does. We got a heckler in the crowd. I don't know if I can boot you out, but I am broadcasting live on his Facebook page right now. It's a Kids Corner takeover, so nothing he can do about it. Sorry, bud.
Beautiful.
All right, I got another question for you, Rob.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you recall. I'm sure you may, but you did a little bit of a panel for us during one of our pirate universities, which we've spoken on this show at length. And this one was on the client experience.
Oh, I remember this.
Obviously,
so well.
Obviously something that you had a lot to say and a lot of good points, some of which you've commented on just now. But I guess my question as it relates to that is going from, say, an environment like the Catskills to the Waldorf Astoria to Chicago and beyond around the country. Are there any differences to how you approach providing that level of experience? Are there differences in the market or in the needs or in the type of clients and their expectation levels?
The short answer is at a base level, the goal is always going to be the same. Is there a difference in the market? 100%. And a lot of looking at what you feel you have to deliver and the methods that you're going to use to deliver it happens before you're even dealing with the AV stuff. And again, this becomes the service level of our industry. The one thing I recall is I know, Ryan, just previous to we went on air, you were commenting on my
the flow
hair, and I said how I just had it cut a couple of hours ago by Judy. So the reason I'm bringing that up is because when I started at the Waldorf Astoria after coming from the Catskills, obviously it was a very corporate setting, and it was driven by a lot of corporate rules, hotel rules. My good buddy, who, if he's still listening, would understand what I'm talking about, Ed Morrell, because we met there at the Waldorf Astoria. And so I had longish hair, and of course I got it all cut, way shorter than this, of course, and got some nice suits and everything. And when I started, I wasn't director. I got that position after being there for a short period of time. But I was at my desk one day after being there about 3 weeks. And the gentleman who at the time was my boss, who I eventually replaced when he relocated, came up to me in the morning and he said, hey, Rob, I got to talk to you about something. I was like, oh, yeah, sure. What's up? He goes, something's been brought to my attention by, the officers of the hotel here. I was like, oh, what's going on? And he goes like this. He takes his two fingers and he.
Oh, no.
And I was like, he goes, yeah, you got to go get a haircut. I was like, oh, and my hair was barely touching the top of my ears. And he said, your hair is touching the top of your ears. And
oh my God.
It was at that moment that I realized that there was a kind of an ancillary level of importance of certain things that the hotel felt was just as important to delivering what we were delivering in the service sector. And it's the way that you presented yourself. Now, listen, my hair had not been that short since the Nixon administration. So how he managed to point that out and I said, thank you for letting me know. This weekend I'll take care of it. He said, no, on your lunch break today, you'll go to 45th and Lex across from the check cashing place. Our barber is there on the second floor. Ask for Henry. It's $8. You'll leave him a 10 and you'll come back all fixed up.
Wow.
All right. So I had to learn in that regard. Now at the Concord, we didn't have any such thing. We wore polyester shirts and slacks. I could be in the lobby with a paper cup of coffee and a live Marlboro, and no one would have anything to say about it. It was okay. So, I know that's not answering your question about the AV specifically, but it's answering about the presentation of the service prior to when you even get into the technology of it. And that was the first difference that I saw from going to the Catskills and going into Manhattan. It was a different world. You had mentioned, Ryan, it was a different world. And I'm saying, oh yeah, it was an absolutely different world for sure.
Okay. Wow. So different settings, right? Different expectation levels.
Different setting. And again, that's not to confuse it with a different expectation level, because the expectation was always that you were going to execute and make everything work correctly and get the job done in the time you're supposed to get it done. Of course, like almost with any job. Yeah. But the setting that you're doing that in is very different than, the Catskills versus the Waldorf Astoria.
Okay. Well, and look, I mean, the setting obviously is pretty critical to know about and to address ahead of time, right? When we go into the hotels, we know we have to look sharper, or at least as sharp as, say, the in-house, because obviously, from our perspective, we're coming, into those spaces, and you need to present yourself in the right way, just like you said. Whereas sometimes we talk about how rock and roll is a different business,
right?
And the expectation level just isn't the same. So, at least in terms of how you present yourself. And this, another peanut gallery comment here. Rob, what would the hotel say about that almost beard that Ryan had?
Oh, listen, you would have been stopped by security on your way into the morning.
Well, and for the peanut gallery watching, yours truly woke up without hot water in his apartment today, because he totally intended on. Yeah, good excuse. Now, look, could I have shaved it yesterday? Absolutely. Did I? No.
No. Why do it ahead of time?
I think he's trying to grow it back out. Are you trying to get back to that picture we have of you?
Alexa actually, she
she
tracked down an old photo of me where the only time I ever grew a beard in my life, and it was, what did it look like? How was it? What do you think?
Not good. Not good.
Not good, Rob.
Did it take a long time?
It took me months. Oh, man. Yeah, so, it is what it is. Maybe I'll shave it one day. We'll see. I got to say, Rob, you've gotten a lot of people engaging and commenting because I think people like you.
Great.
I couldn't imagine why.
I don't know about that, but I'll take it. I'll take it.
That's right.
My buddy Jim Marlowe. Jim, I love you and I miss you for sure.
And as Jim always says, when you hit it out of the park, there is a bat flip and trot around the bases.
Listen,
you know something about that.
If there's anyone who can come up with the proper metaphors and descriptions of successful days in this business, it's my friend Jim Marlowe, Mr. Westchester for sure, otherwise known as Interface Man. And that's a great metaphor. There's absolutely nothing better than dropping the bat and trotting around the bases for sure.
Amen. Great comment from Interface Man. What were you?
I was Plasma Boy, of course.
And Plasma Boy. That's right. That's right. See, Alexa doesn't even know what plasma. She's like, is it a blood thing or?
Well, there we are dating ourselves.
All right. Wait, I have another question from the Peanut Gallery here. Actually, this is Marissa, not the Peanut Gallery. What do you hear now from your friends in the AV world about the changes going on due to COVID, and where do you see? All right. Don't answer that, because that's another question I have coming up. I'm going to take that off screen quickly and replace it. Look, a diversion. At least there's nothing spilled on Ryan's shirt.
Oh, Sam.
I'll take it. Thank you, Gabe.
It's early yet.
That's right. All right, so another question for real. One of the main points of our show here, Rob, is to discuss technology, for starters, and how people interact with it in their various roles and responsibilities and just over the course of their life. So what does your current relationship with technology look like? And has it changed recently? Has it changed over the course of the pandemic?
That's That's a good question. I will tell you, much like it, I mean, look, these past 2 years, I can't even describe what it's been, and I know that everyone feels the same way. Um, I was admittedly a little bit. I use the word shell shocked, maybe a calmer version of that. When this all happened, and I didn't know where my business was going to go. I intentionally dialed down my business when I relocated here by design. So I was already doing less work than I was doing when I was up north. And needless to say, dialing it down and having it go to absolute zero were two very different things. So, I decided early on, I said, well, I think I'm just going to wait this out for a little bit and see what happens. The waiting was a long time. I thought about re-educating myself in a lot of the platforms that started to come to the fore, a lot of the hybrid settings, the virtual settings that, of course, I know you guys have a very good and full footprint in. And I made a conscious decision not to do that. And there's a reason for that. First of all, I was confident that the business would return to its previous glory. I also had a very large concern, and I want to be careful how I say this because I don't want this to be misconstrued. If I went and re-educated myself in a whole different platform, in a whole different setting, the trouble with that is that then people are going to call you and expect you to do only that. I wanted to make sure that as soon as possible, I could return to the roles that I was strongest in, that I knew best. Being at the table, calling the show, being at the stage managing, being a production manager. Quite bluntly, I didn't wish to become a virtual meeting host or or be involved in that way with the technology. And just as important, there are plenty of people in this space who were more anxious to learn it, can do it better with more competence. And I was not interested in trying to compete with that. I didn't see myself at this point in my career of wanting to do that. Believe me, I asked myself the question all the time, and I was studying it up and I was doing stuff on the side. And I said to myself, I have to really want to do this. I don't want to feel like I have to do this. I have to want to do this. And the truth is, I really didn't want to change for what was going on during the pandemic. So as a result, the only real technical changes that I made is I set up my home studio so that I could do some remote voiceover work. And that's about it. And that's a pretty minimal change, microphones, some software. So that's been okay for giving me a little part-time stuff that I deliver to clients. But other than that, I have not changed the technical footprint that I've worked with during the past almost 2 years. And has it been 2 years or 14 years? I can't remember. Pandemic.
It's been too long.
2 years too long.
Very hard to say.
I hope that answers your question too.
It does. It does. It's the battle between upskilling, right? Because that's a very common term in Kids Corner. Upskill, right? Learning new skills, taking on new challenges versus finding yourself pigeonholed in something that you never intended to do. And that's something I can certainly appreciate that. Obviously, from our perspective, it was a bit of a no-brainer for us to be in the virtual space just because we had been already for a decade.
Yes.
And, I joke around that the hybrid events, the old hybrid events were very different than the new hybrid events, but they did very much exist. But certainly, us getting more focused into something we were already doing versus taking on something new and completely different. So,
right.
I could certainly get behind that. But then, of course, there's also the music side of things, right? I mean, have you had any virtual band collaboration sessions or what?
No, and absolutely not. We thought about it, and the fact is that we never did that, and only by the fact that the band that I'm playing with now down here, I've been fortunate enough to play with meet a good bunch of guys and form a new band down here. Doing it virtually with the guys up north, no, we haven't had that setting to do it. And down here, me and my fellow bandmates, we all live on the same street, so it's pretty amazing. To go to practice, I have to walk 40 yards that way. I all my gear up to my neighbor's house, who's 3 doors away, and I go into his living room and we rehearse. And we've had, we didn't really stop even during the pandemic. We kept rehearsing. The gigs were limited for a short time, but it's different down here than it is up in New York. Admittedly, the restrictions down here were a much shorter duration, and they were much looser. I'm not saying that that's right or wrong, or trying to judge or, pass any judgment in that regard. But we were able to keep going out and playing. We've been doing pretty well with a lot of the local breweries and different venues, and getting some pretty good audiences and great following. And it's been fun. And actually, that's been a real saving grace to still be able to go out and play music.
Oh, absolutely. Well, we talk a lot about having, something just to keep you engaged, right? Something to keep you focused, some sort of routine, especially when things are chaotic. Alexa actually has her afternoon walk. She gets the blood pumping, right, Alexa? I mean, look, is that not something, maybe it's not technology related, but something to ground yourself in the everyday, especially when things are a little challenging. And of course, Rob, there's always the possibility we could arrange a virtual wagon wheel tour. I mean, we have the technology, we got the skills. You just show up and you're going to sing those beautiful words into the microphone.
You know what? I am way up for that, Joe. I was just saying to Ryan earlier, we were we were saying that I can't remember the words to that song unless I'm actually singing it. I don't think I could recite it fully without being like, what's the next line?
It's true. Things. It's like the alphabet. Like I can't just pick it up from K and go, go from there.
You have to start from the top and go.
Maybe some people have that skill, but I do not. What about, I hear a little bit about this trivia night. Any technology going on there or what?
Well, you know what? I don't know if I would call it, listen, I'm an analog guy in a digital world. I think everyone knows that. So, the technology that I have is older technology. I have my Behringer 12-channel mixer behind me with all the dials on it, an analog mixer. And the trivia night that I've created is very much more of a show than a lot of trivia nights that people go to, where a lot of times it's software driven, that you're seeing people are playing on their phones or on tablets or something, and it's up on monitors. I do it analog. I pass out paper answer sheets with pens. I spend hours and hours developing the questions. Some of them are audio clips, identify the movie based on this audio clip, the game show based on the theme music, random knowledge, things from high school, stuff like that. And I spent a lot of time developing the trivia, and the good news is people like it. So I'll be doing some more of that also. Maybe that's a new business direction. But it does take a lot of time to do that, because I want to do it in a certain way. But I have enjoyed doing it, and it's been fun, and I'll continue doing that.
I think that's really nice. Even when you were talking about like people, changing direction with the pandemic, they had to go virtual. There's an art to staying with what you're good at, and staying with something that may be a little bit older, but people really appreciate that kind of just being able to do something they're familiar with. So I think that's really awesome.
Yeah, and you know what? You raise a very good point, because I've had people exactly tell me that, saying, "Oh, I'm so glad you're doing this like this with pens and papers." And that's a very good point. And
as much as the world moves on, I think a lot of people have like some really close ties to how it was, so they enjoy that still.
Yes, it's like a bowl of matzo ball soup. It's been around forever, but it still makes you feel better on a cold day.
Exactly.
It's the same kind of thing. It's a very good point. And that's why I decided not to, to keep my trivia night very stripped down, very analog, because I think people can appreciate the simplicity of that.
Definitely. So kind of switching gears here, we're going to move on to the next question. So something that I've seen a lot of being a little bit more new here is there's a lot of high intensity with some of the events. Things go very quickly. Do you have any tips for people for how to stay calm, or how to really kind of show the leadership that you have and direct people and have them all kind of stay in the realm of going on the track they need to go?
Well, yes, I would say that, there's a certain level of, staying calm and keeping focus when you're in these high pressure situations. There's a certain element of that just happens over time, that's developed based on experience. But there's things that you can do in the background, with yourself. Like Alexa, you mentioned that one thing that you do. I know this is somewhat unrelated. Is you like to get out and go for a walk and stuff like that. And to you, that's important. You say,
Yeah.
you probably say something like, you know what, if I don't get out and go for this walk, I'm not going to have a great day, or something like that. It's important to you. So to tail on to that, I think it's important to think of certain traits and attributes, recognizing your own strengths and things that you can do to make our clients feel comfortable in these high pressure situations. Now, one thing that I feel I've developed, and I've been told that I do it with a reasonable amount of success, so I'll take that as a compliment, is trying to remain calm in situations that are not normally calm situations. So this is where I'm getting into answering the inquiry that you're posing here. So the best analogy I can make is there's a difference between urgency and panic. Some people, clients in particular, think that urgency and panic need to equal each other. That is not the case. You can have the utmost sense of urgency in a stressful situation and remain calm, or you can have the utmost sense of urgency and panic. I can assure you that the results will be very different. No one ever accomplished anything with panic that they could not accomplish with calm. So it's important not to interchange those two things. And I'll tell you a very brief example of that from a client. And this has happened several times in the past, as it has to everyone in this industry. A very high-level international bank meeting with all the CEOs in their corporate office up on the top floor about 8-9 years ago. 2 days setting it up, a lot of big staging involved, sound, lighting, everything. And then a short meeting for like an hour and a half. And there I am in the stage management role at the tech table. My client, who worked for the bank, sitting right next to me, who was a very high-strung person to begin with. Great guy, but very high-strung in general in his delivery. No more than 10 minutes before we were about to start the show, the entire bank of show power failed. Oh. The lights went out. The background music died. The whole wireless rack just went dark. I saw it, all the tensor lamps on the table black. I saw it the same time everyone else did. There was a collective gasp on the table. I sat there like this. Or what was probably 2 seconds before I felt on my shoulder the grasp of my client. And I will save the language that he used, but he said, "What in God's green earth are you going to do about this?" And I blinked my eye for a second and I turned towards him and said, "I'm going to fix it. Excuse me for a moment." And I took off my headset and I went. Now, inside, my spleen was exploding. Don't get me wrong, okay? But on the outside, I knew that I had to exhibit calm, not just for the client, but also for my crew, who were a crew of the utmost professionals. And they were already on it, of course. They were up out of their chairs seeing what was going on. They were already addressing the problem, and I was seeing how I could support them. Because the bottom line is, they're the professionals who were going to fix the problem. I was not going to be the guy who was going to discover the problem with the building's electric, for sure. There's people who are way more confident, and it's important to remain calm and realize how to identify those people who are going to fix the problem instead of just running around waving and yelling and panicking. That's not going to solve anything. We got the problem fixed, and there was no lull in the start time of the show. Everything went off as such. The end-to-end clients, the CEOs and everything, really didn't know that anything was wrong. They saw maybe the lights go down and music stuff. They didn't think anything of it. Everything was fine. The crew was stellar at making sure all the mics were still working, the lights were still focused, videos were still going to work, etc. We did our show. It went perfectly. During the strike, the client came up to me. His tie was askew. He was sweating a little bit. He said, I got to ask you one question. How the heck did you know that you were going to get the problem fixed? I looked at him and said, I didn't. But why would I ever tell you that? And he just turned and he walked away. And that was it. Calmness and urgency will always do better than panic and urgency in that situation. And it's very important not to interchange the two.
Rob, that was a good one.
That was really good.
That was a good one, man.
That was probably too long. I apologize.
No,
That was perfect.
that was perfectly said. And, especially Alexa, having not been in as many of these environments as someone like yourself, and even with my limited experience, someone like me. But I think that speaks really well to the reality of it, right? Which is, it is really hard to work when your brain is all stressed out, and it's really hard to solve problems and to think when your emotions get the best of you. And I think that's something that it can't be taken lightly, because these are high stress environments. They are high pressure environments. Yes. And just the worst thing in the world is like trying to solve a problem when somebody's like screaming at you, or somebody has lost control of their emotions. And
Correct.
So, speaking
Correct.
from a leadership standpoint, again, it is really important when you can be that calm presence for others. And Alexa, you're going to find yourself, in situations just like I have at times, where something isn't working, something isn't going right. It is not an if, it is a when. It is definitely going to happen. Mm-hmm. Something is going to break, or a cable's going to be bad, or something's going to miraculously turn off, right? And you're going to have to be that steady, calm presence, because again, not everyone will be able to keep themselves, cool and collected, especially on the client side, where they're so nervous that they don't know what's going on to begin with, that now solving a problem feels like they might as well be able to perform miracles or magic tricks. So, I think those were really well-made points. Mike Dardano agrees, and it does go beyond just working in live events. It applies in many areas.
Absolutely
of life.
True. Absolutely true. The other note on that is it's important, Alexa, Ryan, when you're looking at the client who is quote unquote panicking, or really losing it over what's going on, very quickly you have to realize that you can't control their reaction.
Right.
You can only manage the best you can to get them out of that reaction, out of that emotion. You can't look at them and say, stop yelling, stop panic. You can think that, and you want them to do that, but you can only control what you're doing. You can only control your disposition, the way that you're addressing it. And especially as you build a relationship with a particular client, if they know that you're going to show up and you're going to act in a calm and urgent manner when something is not going the correct way, they're going to assign that as a valuable trait of yours, and they're going to want you around. They're going to say, oh, I want that person, because when stuff's not going 100%, they remain calm and they get it done.
Right.
That's a great quality, and you want to try to pursue that way. Don't be the one who's screaming and yelling with your client.
No.
Don't be that person. That's it.
No, don't be that guy. Alexa, do you know what Rob? You know Maurice Johnson from our team.
Of course. Yeah.
Do you know what he says along those lines? Do you remember his catchphrase?
I don't, but I know that the clients love Mo, so I'm sure it's a good catchphrase.
They certainly do. It's never let them see you sweat.
Never let them see you sweat. That's
and
right.
It's along those lines. Even when you're freaking out because there's a problem
Absolutely.
And you don't have an answer to it yet, how you present yourself, we're back to that,
Right.
how you present yourself
Yes.
will ultimately make other people around you feel more comfortable. So
that's words of wisdom from wise Mo Johnson, for sure. And it's true. And that goes back to the whole service segment of what we do here. First and foremost, we're a service industry.
Absolutely. No, it's and look, you've had quite a few words of wisdom here yourself. A living legend from George Buzzio. That's a nice one. And indeed, story time. Rob is an incredible storyteller. So I could listen to you talk all day long, to be honest with you. So Rob, I got one more question for you here. I've already taken up 50 minutes of your time, so I don't want to keep you forever.
It's okay.
Even though I would like to. So as somebody who has indeed been around the block and who has been working with technology all the way back to the slide projector days and things that are probably I don't even understand or know about, that Jim Marlowe can probably comment on, where do you see technology in our field, in the AV field, going? Are we thinking 4K? Is it VR? What are you thinking? What do you see? What kind of trends?
I think that the best way for me to answer that, based on my knowledge set and where things are presently is to look at where I see the industry relative to how the message is being conveyed going. Now, obviously, these past 2 years have been an anomaly, but and I really dislike this term, but it's become the new normal as of recent, right? With the virtual, the hybrid, and stuff like that. I've kind of given you my opinion on that, so I can't specifically tell you where I think the detailed technology is going. But I'm confident that what we're going to see in the very near future is a lift away from the virtual and the hybrid and a return to the traditional large scale meetings and events, in person events. There's a couple of reasons for that. We all know what it is. There's nothing like being in a room, pressing the flesh, the energy, the networking. It's really not the same as when you're doing it in a virtual setting. And also, in our society, in our country, these corporations who support us, these organizations who have these meetings and events, they want to get back to it. Oh, for now, they want to do the virtual, they want to do the hybrid, because it makes sense from, a health standpoint, a safety standpoint. Maybe it's better for them money wise and stuff like that. But I'm telling you, it's going to take the first ones, and that's already happening as far as we know. It's going to take the first ones to say, all right, enough of this. We're going back out. Give us the ballroom at the Sheraton, invite 1,000 people, get corporate AV on the line, and make sure they got their best guys on staff. We're putting on a big show. And that's going to happen, and the other companies are going to follow. So in answering your question, my view is it's going to be less about the technology and more about returning to the format that made our industry so great. There's a lot of people who are doing great things in this virtual and hybrid space. I'm sorry, my opinion is that it will not ever replace live, large-scale events. And to be clear, it's more than just the technology you're talking about, the 4K, the VR and stuff like that. It's the stuff that doesn't plug in and blink. The things like the backdrops, the risers, the skirting, the furniture on stage,
scale,
the water bottles with the labels peeled off and no glue left on the plastic. So when the guy picks it up, he's not rubbing it on his because he's got this gooey thing that feels like it came out of his nose on his thing. It's little things like that people want to get back to. And listen, I was hoping it was going to be last year, a year and a half ago, didn't we all? Amen. And now here we are, almost 2 years later, and we're still, kind of stumbling our way back into it. Right. Some quicker than others, and that's great. That's a good sign. But I really think that's where it's going to go. We're going to get back to these large-scale meetings. We're going to get back to these events where companies want to be out there and say, we're spending money, we're doing it bigger and better. What you got? And their competition's coming out trying to do the same thing. And that's where we all succeed. That's where we all get back to work. That's where we all increase the money that we're making. And that sure is what I'm waiting for. I know everyone else is too.
I think that's so true, because I think people, they just want to go back to the basics, like strip away all the different things. And, they might keep those components. Maybe some people keep the hybrid because they have the audience they never reached before. But definitely the back to the basics, the core, being able to interact and be in a room, it's just such different energy. So I totally get what you're saying there.
Mm-hmm. And it's a good point, because I don't mean to discount the hybrid format at all, because you do raise a good point. They're reaching audiences that they may have not had a way to reach before. And that is very important, of course. It used to be get on a plane, call the travel agent, here's your hotel reservation, get ready to drop X amount of dollars to get here, where instead now they can just go make a cup of tea, sit at the computer and a part of the meeting. I do think that'll still be around for a while, believe me. But I do feel that is going to start to shrink as the events start to come back, because people are going to want to be in the front row, so to speak.
So what you're saying is, if you build it, they will come.
And yeah, if you load it in and if you build it, they will come. Who ever heard of such a saying like that?
That's just the brilliance of Rob Friedland. I think that's very clear. And yes, Jim Marlowe, a new pivot indeed, right? Pivot back. I'm with you on that. Honestly, actually, I've already started to see at least a few events at a bigger scale in person than than we've seen in the last couple of years start to come in, and it's kind of like a caution to the wind. Like, screw it, we're doing this. Like, we're gonna make a big impact. It seems like this is something we have to live with now. So, and if that's the first groups leading the charge, then then we're along for the ride, because we're looking forward to getting back to it too. But
that's said very well, and I really think that's I really feel that's the way it's going to be. That's what we're going to see in the coming months of 2022 is a revamp and getting back to what we know.
Right. Well, this is great. Well, Rob, man, this has been really fantastic. It's been so great to see you again, and to to shoot the. I was going to use an expletive, but I won't do that. To shoot the breeze. There we go. It didn't have to be an expletive. There we go. And yes, I agree. You should run for AV public office. There should be like an AV czar, right?
Oh, that's
and that
funny.
will be Mr. Rob Friedland.
Buzzio, thank you so much.
And of course, Jack Quinn. Good to see you, Rob.
Hey, JQ.
You got a lot of people who have been, happy to engage with you just like we have. So, Rob, thank you very much, man. We really appreciate it. I kind of wish that your hair looked a little bit more like this, because I just feel like I was let down a little bit. But
well, you know what? If we did this yesterday, it was almost there. I'll tell you something. Like I said, I just got it. But I want to tell you guys, Ryan, Alexa, Joe, everyone at Corporate AV. First and foremost, I miss the heck out of all you guys, really. And I do hope we can get together for work and or a beer, not necessarily in that order, in the near future. And and I really appreciate you reaching out to me and asking me to come on the show here today.
Absolutely.
It's nothing short of an honor, and I mean that very much.
Wow.
And I appreciate you taking the time to listen to some of my stories and everything, and I thank you for the time.
Look, the thanks is ours. I mean, we really were glad to have you. I mean, even look, how come I don't get great guests like this? Must be the exceptional host. No, I can't take the credit. This one's all Rob.
Yeah, Rob, I wanted to say it was very nice to meet you, obviously over virtually, but I can tell you have such great leadership, and you're just an all-around good guy. Ryan wasn't lying when he said you're just you know what you're doing.
Alexa, I wish you well. You're with a great company, definitely one of the best for sure, and with some great colleagues. So you're going to do great over there for sure.
Definitely. Thank you.
Great. All right, Rob. Well, we're going to say so long for now, and like you said, we'll hopefully be seeing each other soon, one way or another.
Thank you both again very much, and thanks to everyone who watched today. And we'll see you very soon. Take care.
Have a good one.
All right. So, Alexa, what'd you think?
He's awesome.
I mean, he lived up to my selling of him, right?
100%. All his sayings, everything was like on point. He knows.
Oh, he really is just a tremendous individual, and honestly, I couldn't think of a better guest to come on for your first co-hosting role. So
for sure.
There you go. You got one under the belt. How you feel? You feel good?
Yeah, I think actually Joe was contacting me saying if I could replace you. So just a heads up.
Just like that, and I'm out. Just like that. Wow. That's how it goes sometimes. All right, well, Alexa, let's get ready to wrap this up. Anything that you want to just reiterate that we learned today from Rob? Anything that stuck out to you?
I just think his leadership, being able to stay calm and kind of lead by example, how he said, the energy you're bringing to the room is what everyone sees. They pick up on that, and they kind of feel more calm just from seeing how you are. So I thought that was really, really amazing.
I'm with you, and I like this in particular. No one has ever accomplished anything with panic that they couldn't do with calm. Amen. Amen, brother.
Very true.
Well, we have done almost exactly an hour of this, and that's a long one, but it was entirely worth it from my perspective. Sure. But Alexa, before we go, why don't you tell everybody where they can find us?
Every Wednesday at 1 p.m., you can find us on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Be sure to smash the subscribe button, like us, comment. We were really happy with all the engagement today, so that was awesome. Send us any messages if you want to see new topics coming up, and we hope to see you guys again.
Absolutely. And thank you, of course, again to our guest, Rob Friedland. Elevate your event, Rob Friedland Production Services. The man wants to get back on the road, right, for the right projects. Reach out to him. Wonderful guy. And of course, we will see you next time right here on AVX Live.
Get the kids corner on the way out.
Oh, wait. Hold on. Kids corner. Kids Corner. There we go. Nailed it. See, now I'm doing all the clicking, so now I have to go all the way back to that. Okay. And so long.
Adios.